Welcome back to Selling the Soundtrack, your go to pod for everything music sync licensing. If you're already making bangers, your music could be making you bank. Today we're here with Josh Williams, also known as XJ Will on socials. Josh has produced music for tons of major companies, including Lionsgate, Verizon, Red Bull, NASA, and so many more. He owns and operates a sync course and online community, which is how I started getting my first placements. And he runs Shades of Sync, which is a sync conference where attendees get access to panels, workshops, and keynotes. From Sync Licensing 101 to pitching, music libraries, arrangement, and everything in between, he is the go to expert for sync mentorship, and he's become something of a legend in this industry. I'm so excited to have him here today on this podcast. Thanks so much for being here, Josh.
What's going on, Tiff? I'm super honored to be in this in the podcast. I am just super excited to kind of talk all things sync, and I will be sending you a gift basket for that amazing intro. That was absolutely amazing and totally not deserved. So I appreciate it.
Oh my God, it is really deserved. Like, you're helping legitimately millions of people on the internet make money from their music. And I feel like, especially nowadays, it's gotten so hard to make leeway, especially like with Spotify. The streams are like nil. And, live shows since the pandemic has totally warped the industry. So it's like, where do musicians make money?
Yeah, everyone's kind of scrambling, and it's kind of like it's a lot of chaos. You know what I mean? But I mean,
Yeah.
technology's kind of always changed the music industry if you think about it, whether it be with CDs or streaming and all that kind of stuff. So one thing that's been consistent since I want to say the 30s and 40s is using music behind motion picture, and so that's something that I think is a viable and probably something that I lean more towards now more than ever, just because it's hard trying to get famous, and then most people don't want to be famous. So it's nice to
Yeah.
kind of be in like behind the curtains, if you will.
Absolutely. Being famous is a whole lifestyle. And yeah, even though this industry has been around for a long time, it's crazy how many people don't know about it.
Totally, totally. I wish I could have learned about it when I was in school. That was something that I would have really tried to probably take advantage of, just because I think a lot of people, if they don't realize it or not, are exposed to their favorite songs through visual media anyway, especially in our
Hmm.
generation. So it's just something
Hmm.
that is super impactful, but like you said, no, a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah. And you went to university for music, but that still wasn't in your program.
Yeah, I got a bachelor's degree in jazz performance for trumpet, and
Oh.
nothing. I mean, I use what I guess it helps. It helps just because of the music theory, the connections, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we had one electronic music class and one semester of music business, and it was more like how to get gigs, which was, I mean, it was kind of helpful, but at the same time, not relevant.
Yeah. And also, I feel like you don't even need a course to get gigs, also.
Not really. You just have to have good people skills, and sometimes that can't be taught in the school.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us more about you and what you're up to.
So I currently am doing a couple of different things. Right now, I'm focused on making more music for brands, not fans, and currently working into getting some stuff trademarked, which is kind of fun, just because of
Ooh.
like social media and things of that nature.
Mhm.
My main goal for we were just talking about 2024 goals. My main goal for next year is to make sure that I'm providing a lot more value and information for the clients and students that I teach on a regular basis. Another huge goal would be to enter my music into the Spider Verse, which has been like a series that I've been messing with and
Mhm.
kind of perfecting. And then also just making Shades of Sync bigger and better than ever. We had our first conference this past November, and it was really, really fun. A lot of growing
Yeah.
pains, but we learned a lot, and we're excited to make it bigger and better than ever.
Yeah, I saw videos behind the scenes for the Shades of Sync event. I'm so sad I didn't go.
Oh my
Like,
goodness, it was so much
major
fun.
FOMO. Yeah, it looked so lit. Like, and this was your first one, and yet it looked packed in the
Yeah, we were
videos.
excited. We didn't actually. We were kind of worried at the tail end, just because we were like, "Oh man, we'll have a lot of tickets. Like, how are we going to do this?" And
Yeah.
thankfully, everyone is more of a procrastinator like I am and waited till the last minute. But like, it
Yeah.
was cool because never have I ever seen a packed group of minorities in this industry. Normally, when I go to sync events and stuff like that, it's more of a majority based thing, and that's totally understandable. Just because a lot of minorities don't have access to this kind of stuff, or just people in general. So it was cool to see that kind of impact happen, and hopefully next year we can stop making it an anomaly and more of a regular thing.
Yeah, totally. And like even the speakers you had there was such like a good range of people because you had like a lot of sync agents, and I know that those people are hard to come by also.
They're like
And
catching
like
unicorns.
supervisors. So just like yeah, having access to people in real life is so game changing because like yeah, the computer screen it works, but it's not as real as like shaking people's hands and like getting a vibe.
Yeah, buying a drink for someone is much better than just like sending a cold email. It hits much differently.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, you're just changing the game because like I've never seen anything like that before.
Well, I tell you what though, Clint and
Yeah.
I, we made the conference based around what we do in our private teaching sessions. Like we share our network with our students and clients. We try to give you all the resources you kind of need to basically all you have to do is execute now. We have the resources, you have the contacts, you have the structure and things provided so that you can still be creative within the confines of what the industry needs, because we're in a service-based business when it comes to having audio storytelling to help enhance what the visual directors are doing. You know, so like
Mhm.
having that kind of resource community, and then also the ability to change your mindset around essentially, because there's a lot of things that we do as artists when we first get into making music that we have to kind of reshape a bit.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that having those kinds of things at the forefront, you won't have to make the same mistakes I did for the first 18 months of trying to get into sync. So like that's
Mhm.
yeah, we're just trying to make sure that everyone kind of speeds up their process into getting into the industry, because there's plenty of bread to be made.
Totally. And also it kind of sucks when you first start getting into it and you
Oh
don't
my
know where to
gosh,
start and it's just like
it's so
yeah, and you're throwing
confusing.
yeah, you're just throwing shit at the wall and nothing's sticking and it's like obviously if you don't understand the fundamentals, it's going to take you 3 times as long, but
And it could shoot you in the foot too, just because like most people, for instance, they want to start pitching first before they have an idea of how the business works, and that's normally a pet peeve that I've talked to hundreds of supervisors and agents now, and library owners
Mhm.
as well. Like that's the one thing that just now got to hold their hand through this kind of thing. If you already have that together, your music becomes more appealing without them even listening to it. So
For sure.
very important.
And and it definitely bleeds through even in that initial cold outreach email if you know the fundamentals. And
Totally.
like there's a higher chance that that supervisor is going to open it if you're using the right like wordage, like yeah, like one stop, this is like the splits with all the writers and these samples are used and they're cleared, like just having full transparency in those outreach emails.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Being transparent and also like pro- giving them value up front. So like, hey, I know you're working on this. Like, this is really, and that's something I'll hopefully be able to share later. Is some tools that I like to use to kind of keep, just to provide more value for them. Because again, we're in a service-based industry, so like, if I can help you, even if it doesn't pay off in the front game, the long run happens, and you'll know that I'm reliable and able to kind of help out when you're in a pinch. That's the best way to
Hmm.
kind of build relationships to me.
How did you get into sync yourself?
Ugh, you want the long story or the short story?
I kind of want the long story. I'm so
Oh
intrigued.
gosh. Okay. So I wouldn't even call myself a seasoned producer. I actually got into
Yeah.
sync licensing after college. Um,
Okay.
I'll give you the medium story just because I want to
Okay.
share a bunch of extra tools later.
Okay.
So like I was doing the touring thing, trying to be a rock star, and like essentially what happened in the Midwest, we have this thing that that just irks my skin, and I call it the Midwest mentality, and it's just people get complacent because it's really chill here, it's cheap to live, and you kind of higher goals and aspirations sometimes can be hard to find, or at least
Mm,
people that have them, because eventually when they have them, they leave. which is understandable. So what happens, we were doing the touring thing. We were trying to do stuff in the Midwest. I had toured internationally already by that point. And I was coming back home to build my own thing. We were doing gigs like every weekend, and that was fun. But essentially, everyone was at a pivot point. We were like in our late or mid 20s, so 25, 26, 27. People were getting married, having kids. So responsibilities changed, and that's totally understandable. But myself and one of the other people in the band, we were like, hey, we still want to make music for a living. Like, we got to figure this out. And so the first thing we discovered was how we can get paid for writing original songs. And so we found the BMI Live situation. And so he and I told the rest of the band, hey guys, we play covers and stuff, and that's fun, but like 80% of our sets are now going to be like original music. And everyone was kind of whining about it. They're like, but the fans and like, I was like, trust me, okay, just watch what happens. And eventually, I want to say 3-4 months later, what happened, we had hold on a second. I have you hear that buzz? There we go. I'm going to get rid of that. So 2016, 2017, we started getting royalty checks because we were performing our music live that was registered with BMI. And so we had a chance to open up for like Earth, Wind, and Fire and some other crazy gigs that had a higher payout just because of the amount of people that would fit into certain rooms. And they were like, oh, this is amazing. Like, we should do this more often. And so that kind of got us onto the writing bug. And eventually, when the project eventually kind of phased out, I still want to make music. So that's how I got into production at first. But what happened, there's not a lot of... The music industry is not really very vibrant here. We do have a great jazz scene and stuff, but... when it comes to like mainstream music, you're just not going to find a huge studio outside of like Strange Music with Tech Nine in this area. So what happened, I got invited to a concert by one of the adjunct faculty members at the school I graduated from. And I realized that it was a benefit concert because he couldn't pay his health insurance. And so like my whole life flashed before my eyes because I had the same trajectory. We both played the same instrument. Like we were doing gigs around. I was just like, this is 20 years ahead. Like I can't do this. So that kind of put me down the rabbit hole of like, okay, I need to figure out something else. Doing gigs until I'm 50, 60 years old is probably not going to be good if I want to start a family. And like essentially what happened is I started to think, how do musicians, after they've done the touring thing, continue to build revenue? And what I realized was it's the publishing side, the stuff that we were kind of messing with BMI earlier. That's intellectual property that we own. And so that's how I dug into sync licensing. And basically, it's like you're a rental company for cars, and essentially the more catalog you have, those are your cars, and then supervisors, sync agents, film directors, they come in, rent your car for, I don't know, a project, and then they have to give it back to you because normally they don't own the copyright or intellectual property that you're making. And so when I've kind of figured that out, I was like, yo, this is kind of cool. Let me see if I can reach out to some libraries and get the stuff I was making into their catalogs so they could pitch it for me while I can focus on making more music. And essentially 18 months later, me doing part-time jobs at like Guitar Center. I used to work at a bank doing mortgages and stuff I didn't like, but was helpful because with the bank, it helped me understand finances and things of that nature. That was something else that we didn't really learn in school. And then with Guitar Center, the sweet discounts were amazing. So I built my studio while I was trying to get into sync licensing. And so eventually, 18 months later, and I think about 216 songs in, I finally got a placement on a Taco Bell commercial for like 5 figures. And when that happened, everything changed. Because I was like, we need to try to do this again. This was amazing. And so I tried to reverse engineer exactly why they picked the song out of all the other ones I sent them. And outside of it being just better quality, just because I just started production maybe a year and a half before that. I realized that there's like 3 things that really stand out when it comes to songs that I've started to study in the in commercials and things of that nature that are important in sync licensing. And that's sound selection, editable arrangement. Sorry. Have you tell I haven't had breakfast yet. And then another cool thing that I've started to realize now is there's something I like to call an anchor hook. And that's just a simple, it's kind of like an earworm, but it's something that's super memorable and easy to use for music supervisors. Because what I want to happen is for a music supervisor, while they're putting music onto videos and stuff, and maybe they get an email, they get distracted, or they have to, like, I don't know, drop a deuce or something like that. When they leave their computer, they still hear my song. And if I can do that, that memorability is going to raise my chances exponentially when it comes to getting something placed. And so if I can get that replayability or whatever in their heads with that anchor hook, I'm essentially going to be able to make the placement.
And when you say editable, do you mean like just having breakpoints?
Yeah, edit points, breakpoints. I like to use ear candy to accentuate certain moments and time in a song. Sometimes that makes it just makes it more eclectic. I always like to what's another? I like to use a basketball analogy. You want to cross them over, but you don't want them to fall. So like you want to, expectation is what gives me goosebumps when I'm listening to music myself. And if I can, a lot of people might not have that physical feature or trait or whatever, but what I want them to happen, or what I want to happen, is that music is very repetitive. If I can break that conformability for just a split second, it's going to essentially pull their ears, and I wonder what he's going to do next, because that was crazy. You know what I mean? So if I can do that, then it basically keeps the listener interested and not bored, because essentially if it feels like a loop, it's going to feel cheap to them. And my goal is to make my music sound as expensive as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So adding variation and switching things up is important.
Very important. You need, normally when in arrangements, I like to have at least 5 different moments that they can use in a song. Therefore, when I'm sending an EP of like 5 different tracks, it's actually like 25 to 40 when you take the stems and the 30-second spots and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So again, exponentially maximizing placement potential just based off of those kinds of things.
Cool. That's really good advice for the listeners. I would also love to deep dive into your community and like why you started it.
Essentially, the program that I've been kind of dancing around is called the 4-week Sync Catalyst program. And essentially what it is essentially we take really amazing producers, indie artists, and sometimes we've actually had a couple like music managers and marketers come through as well. But we essentially teach them exactly what they need to do, or at least my process to get into sync licensing. And then what I think is the most valuable part of it is that we have this private community of like sync mercenaries, as I like to call it. And essentially what happens is they've already had the education, they understand how important sync is, and they're like super laser focused. So anytime you need to collaborate with someone, there's a ton of people that are super qualified to help out. They already understand the game when it comes to making stuff sound more sync worthy. We also bring in music supervisors and sync agents and library owners, and we do like listening feedback sessions every week. And either myself and my team will do some critiquing based off of our experience, but when we bring in those special guests, normally once or twice a month. Hopefully next year the goal is to have something every week, which would be like amazing. But like a lot of back end work that needs to happen for that. But essentially, getting their opinion is worth way more than mine, just because they're the ones making the decisions. So why wouldn't you want their opinion on how to do things? We also do like practice briefs. So when some supervisors come in, they'll send us a brief so that we can write to. And essentially, that's a skill of practice that a lot of people just don't have, just because we don't have access to it. So learning how to follow instructions or read between the lines when they need something specific is extremely important. I'll never forget one of the first briefs I got. One of the revisions was we need to sound more yellow. And I was just like, what do you mean? It needs to sound yellow. And like, I need my students to kind of understand, like, okay, then they need it to sound like this or more joyous or what have you. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a underlining or undercurrent of music theory that we kind of try to make sure that's in the curriculum in the program as well. But it's just great to have a community or a tribe of people that you can kind of hit up if there's like a weird contract or it's just a hive mind of information. So like when news articles come out, like we were up to date with the strike. I think we almost knew about what was going to, or what timing the strike was going to end, just because you have people from all over the world, New Zealand, Vancouver, Texas, California, and we're all kind of sharing information to understand like where is the industry going, and having that is really great to kind of have an advantage or a prediction of what we see in the future is going to happen, whether that be trends or whatever, you know?
Absolutely. Like the course is phenomenal, but the community is like mind blowing. It's like so fundamental, I feel, to getting somewhere in the industry. Just because, like,
It's a people business.
yeah, even simply just sending your tracks to some friends in the group to be like, hey, like, how would you make this track better? And then you get so much good information because like, it's a shared purpose for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Your music sounds different when you're listening to other people listen to it. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
all the mistakes or things you forgot to add, like those come out when you're watching someone else like analyze your song. And so to have that feedback is, I think, essential to growing and getting better a lot faster.
And you've gotten some big names up in the community too to just come and chat. I'm always just like, oh my God, whoa. Yes, I'm definitely attending this week's.
Yeah, we've had some people from like Disney. We've had other sync people that across the social media platforms that have been really helpful in education. Yeah, it's been really fun. And it's also fun for me personally because again, these are people that I've met personally, whether that be at a conference or in passing or for a brief that I was saying thank you for. And so to again share the information and help people be more equipped, we're actually helping each other out because now they have a larger group of people that they can rely on when it comes to, hey, I need something, and they don't have to, there's a lot of extra steps that they don't have to go through or explain. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Could you share some resources that you think are helpful to musicians that are trying to make leeway in this industry?
Oh, Tiffany, I thought you'd never ask. Now check this out. I'm going to share like a bunch of websites really quick that help me with research and things of that nature. So the first one I'm going to probably, and these are not, none of these are like affiliated. I'm not getting any kickback or anything on these websites, but IMDb Pro is probably going to be the first one. Just because it gives you the research of what's coming up in film and TV soon. That way you can kind of have, when you reach out to supervisors and sync agents that are working on certain things, you'll be able to, oh man, I was just looking for something like this. Timing is everything when it comes to the industry. And so if you could provide that value before they even know it, then you're going to easily become one of their go-tos, especially if it's really high quality production music. That being said, back to the yellow sounding songs, something that I've found to be super helpful is analyzing the crap out of reference tracks that a brief will give you. Because if you can hit on exactly what they're looking for, because sometimes they're not very good at describing things if they're not familiar with music theory and things of that nature. But if they can give you a reference, you can analyze it and essentially anticipate or give them what they're looking for without sounding the same. And so I have a couple different websites that help with that. One being, where's it at? MuseStacks. So Music STAX. It's a music analysis website that I love to use that gives you the tempo, the key, the loudness, and a bunch of other different factors on music that they may give you on from Spotify and things of that nature to essentially dissect what's going on in the song before you even start working on it. So what I like to do is take this and then another website called Music Map. It's music-map.com. And essentially what this does is it finds similar music. So like maybe I'm working on a track that used a reference of Blackway. Sorry. I've been a huge fan of him in the last couple months. I'm going to type it in here, Blackway. And then what it does is it gives you a bunch of related artists that have similar sounding things. And now it's easier for you to kind of dive into. What I like to do with references is take 3 of them. So I'll never sound exactly the same of a reference because they don't want sound-alikes. They want something that sounds unique but has these kind of features or vibes. And so I'll take 3 different related artists with a sound similar to the one that they gave me, and then take elements from each one and then make something my own. That way, it never sounds the same. It sounds super fresh, but it's still in the ballpark of what they're looking for. So those two
Genius.
websites in combination are really, really helpful. Reference tracks are important to me. So I also use plugins like Tonal Balance to make sure that the tonal curve or EQ is similar. That way it kind of, even if I have something like with this different instrumentation based off of their reference, it still sounds similar to them. That way, again, I'm closer to the reference than most people will be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are two ones that I like to use in tandem. Another website I like to use is Songview. We talk about this in our class, and essentially what it is a catalog of all the things that are registered on ASCAP and BMI. So if you want to do like more like private detective research on what's being placed and who's placing it, essentially what you can do is you can search via the government name or the publisher name and find out who's actually registering these tracks, and then essentially find the library that's placing these things, because they'll be assigned on as a publisher. And with that information, you'll be able to say, hey, congrats, I really like this placement that you guys just made recently. Normally you can find them on Instagram, social media, whatever. And essentially just reach out with that kind of information. And now you can say, I make stuff that's similar to this, or, hey, I noticed that you're missing this in your library. I'd love to like kind of fulfill that need. And with that, it's just a really cool way to, again, provide value that most people might not find on the surface. I got more tools. I keep going if you want me to.
I would love that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
please.
So there's a couple others. I showed you Stacktune a couple days ago. I thought that was cool just because when you're working with maybe an artist, if you're a producer or vice versa, it's basically like a SoundCloud that's private on a private server where you can kind of comment on different timestamps of what you want the music to do differently. And I've used it a lot with different clients on freelancing projects, just because sometimes it's hard for them to describe exactly what they want or where it is. And using something like that is really good to kind of, and it also updates you when they listen to it, and also gives like true peak and integrated LUF values, just so that it keeps register of each variation of the same song you have. So they can go back and forth without saying, oh yeah, I like this, and then me secretly sending them like an older version, like version 20 out of 45, and basically oh, this is perfect, and it's like, I gave you that to you already, you know what I mean? So like I like that just for that feature.
Yeah.
Tunefind is a great one that a lot of people know about. They just started recently adding video games and ads into what the different, basically it's a database of what's being used on television on a regular basis and links to the music. That's a really cool resource. That pitch is great if you want to get into microsync, just because it's like a beat store for sync licensing. So essentially they have deals with bigger companies like Artlist, Epidemics, or not Epidemic, what's the other, Soundstripe, and things of that nature. So they have briefs on a regular basis that you can, that's where I actually practiced learning how to write for briefs, because they have a lot of them all the time. And so it was a way for me to kind of practice and hone the skills. Now, I'm not a vocal artist by any means. My pen is not as great as it probably should be, but I also have a tool that I like to use. Lyric Studio is great for like coming up with ideas, but coming with interesting stuff that works for sync, I like to use a website called textfx.withgoogle.com, and it's a Google Lab session that they worked in tandem with Lupe Fiasco, and essentially it's a language model that helps you write lyrics in very interesting ways. So like they have things like coming up with different similes, creating acronyms and alliteration for things, just to make your lyrics sound more nuanced, that I really, really like playing with. And then the last tool that I haven't actually shared with anybody outside of the community, so this is really cool. I made a GPT, if you're into like using chatbots and things of that nature, to help you write emails, outreach emails to people. And it's based off of like all the conversations I've had via email, templates that I've found to be helpful, like follow-up templates and stuff like that. You type in the actual you type in some information about yourself, you paste the URL of the library you're trying to get in, and let it do its magic, and it writes emails for you really, really fast. Super proud of it. I came up with it last month, and yeah, it'll be hopefully available to everybody, not just people in the community, pretty soon.
Cool. Yeah, that's super helpful, especially because like you have to tailor the emails anyway. So having a template that's copy and paste
Yeah.
isn't as useful as like a chat GPT thing where you input like supervisor's name,
Mm-hmm.
library, what type of music, why you're reaching out, blah 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 blah.
Yep. And you can also train it to sound like you too, which is I think really cool. So definitely going to probably help the creatives, just because I mean
Hmm.
I'm not the best copywriter, so I mean my spelling's terrible just because I'm part of that generation. So I mean it's really great to have like a super autocorrect in our on our team to basically kind of help us to outreach the way we want to be perceived, essentially.
Definitely. And also like it's nice to be able to focus a little bit more on the music and less on the admin stuff.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the other stuff is great. Don't get me wrong. Relationship building and stuff is definitely important, but like at the end of the day, we just want to be in our little cubby holes making music.
Facts. Do you think there are any genres that are higher in demand and sync than others?
Ooh, okay. So this is a great question. Um, I will tell you my thoughts and then how I got to it. That way, like
Mhm.
people when they're asking themselves this question, they can have a pathway to finding out for themselves,
Mhm.
especially because sometimes it can be territory based. So essentially what I
Mhm.
do to find the new trends is I watch the Super Bowl ads, because normally
Mhm.
they're going to be brands are going to try to be as in touch with the social community climate as much as possible because they're trying to sell something, right? So they want to
Mhm.
make sure that they're standing in the they want to be in with the cool kids. So what I'll
Mhm.
do is I mean the game's great, especially because I'm in KC and like the Chiefs win a lot. But like what I
Mhm.
do is while everyone else is getting nachos and stuff while the commercials are on, I'm sitting there with a pen pad and I'm writing down like exactly what's being used, if there are vocals on it, what genre, and things of that nature. So what
Mhm.
I normally see as the top 5 genres that are normally in sync are that are being used more often is
Mhm.
orchestral music, rock and roll, hip hop, pop
Mhm.
music, obviously, and then the other one was funk and soul, but I'm seeing a lot more Afrobeat music. That being said, I have some predictions for next year. I
Yeah.
actually was sharing this with a music blog earlier this morning. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up really quick because I thought
Mhm.
this was really really cool. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where is it? The other thing that I think is going to change
Mhm.
with genres in sync are Afro beats had come up a lot, but what happened is I think people are looking more into nuanced subgenres of Afrobeat music. So like things I wrote them all down here. I'm a
Yeah.
piano is still on a rise. Funk music with a P.
Mhm.
Electric dance music is coming back, I think, which is kind of cool because that's where I kind of got my start when I learned how to arrange properly. And
Mhm.
then let me see, there was another. Oh, and this is just something that I wrote down that I'm going to be working on more is the ballet funk and reggaeton. Those two genres I think are still on a rise right now, and it's also something I
Yeah.
like to listen to. So I'm super excited to kind of dive into those genres and understand how they work. So yeah,
Yeah, that's so fun. That's cool. That's really cool. One thing that I've heard in the course over and over again is just like pay attention, don't skip YouTube ads. Like,
they're
yeah.
literally screaming at you what's working. Someone had to.
Yeah.
Anytime you watch an ad, and sometimes it's actually kind of like crazy. You'll hear it and go like, someone paid for that. You know what I mean? Like I could make something way better than this. And so like
Yeah.
just to keep that mentality, I think is really important. Just because like it just constantly reminds you that there's a lot of revenue to be made in this industry.
Definitely. Definitely. Before we wrap up, do you have any last words? Anything you want to say?
Um, Continue to make stuff that sounds expensive. What I mean by that is that intention is everything when it comes to making music for sync licensing, or just in general. If you are honestly trying to make something random, you're going to have less of a chance of making something that you actually like, in my opinion. So
Hmm.
having intention with everything you do, whether that be a timing situation, a rhythm, a melody, those things I think are very very important. Also, don't be afraid of what's happening in the technology space in music. So the AI stuff that's going on, it's easy to say, oh yeah, this is going to take over everything that we're doing. But honestly, I think a lot of companies are being really responsible when it comes to helping producers and indie artists kind of use artificial intelligence to kind of raise the output value of what they're doing. So it's just making us more efficient. And if you don't use the tools, I don't want you to feel left behind, essentially. So being able to kind of use them to your advantage right now is really important. I also will say that branding, when it comes to being an artist or a music producer, is going to be more important than ever in the next 5 years, just because of the commoditizing of music with AI anyway. So music supervisors, agents, they still want music that's coming from a human. So in order to stand out more, it was easier a couple years ago just because like they're just needing a track, but now they want more of a track that's going to be more in touch with the audience that they're trying to reach with their storytelling process. So it's really important to stand out with your branding now more than ever, because there's going to be a lot more music made in the next couple of years. You know what I'm saying? Because again, we're going to get more efficient. So if you can find a unique way to stand out, not just audibly, but visually, or just by connecting some different way, I don't know what kind of things we're going to have in the future to do this with, but just keeping that in mind is going to be important.
Interesting. So, do you think that like branding yourself in a way that you want to be placed? So, like for example, like you want to be in horror movies, you should brand yourself really dark and like
Yeah, I think that it works because what a lot of supervisors and agents have told me is that they do go check your social media platforms, because they want someone perfect. It's almost like casting for a movie still. Like they want a sound that fits perfectly with their story. So like having that kind of stuff is, I think it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? And normally we vibe or associate ourselves with genres the same way anyway, just like with our personalities and lifestyles. So if you can maybe enhance it just a little bit to stick out, I think it would be helpful. Now, you don't have to go like hard left or right when it comes to this stuff, by all means, unless you want to, like, go for it if you're more of the artist side of things. But for me, like, I just it's almost like, I wouldn't say manifesting, but like just saying what you're interested in is a really helpful way for people that are interested in the same things to find you too. It's as simple as that, you know what I mean? So like for instance with the Spider-Verse situation, I am so like I love comic books, and so like that is the one thing, if I could accomplish that, I'd be like, I'm finished. So like having just sharing that kind of information on socials actually got me into a couple different libraries and sync deals with people that were working on those projects. So it's just really helpful as another way outside of cold email to just, hey, this is the kind of stuff I do. You showcase it, maybe show behind the scenes or under the hood of how you made it. And it just, people like seeing that stuff, and that it shows credibility as far as like what you're really good at. So I'm a huge advocate for that.
Dope. And where can people find you?
You can find me on the interwebs if you search anything XJ_Will. That's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Oh, and you can also find me with anything involving Shades of Sync. So, yeah.
Cool. And I'll leave all of Josh's links in the description along with his course and community. And don't forget to follow Selling the Soundtrack on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. If you have any questions for future guests, just drop them in the comments. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. Bye.
Yeah. See you guys.